Much to the shock of absolutely nobody, I am very, very late on this topic, but my subscribers insisted that I do this one, and of course, I'm much obliged. However, I kind of want to look at this in a, let's just say, a kind of a larger perspective and what has been going on with the iconic Tomb Raider license as of late, as it seems that with the new projects that keep coming out and projects that keep getting canceled and just all the kind of hoopla going on behind the scenes, it just seems that there's no ounce of, I just don't think that the people running the IP have a fondness for what, you know, the fans want, which is a return to form, as they say, for classic Lara Croft in all of her glory. In fact, I think with every project that we've been seeing lately has been so much to distance far further away from the classic Lara Croft that became iconic in all of our hearts and minds. The classic Lara Croft that basically define video games as a whole. The classic Lara Croft that I am 100% certain we will never see again. What am I talking about? Well, let's get right into it, shall we? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. My name is Makini90, artist, German, and illustrator. Welcome you to another video here on the Makini Draws channel. Hope you all are doing well today. And like I said at the top of the video, I am pretty late on this topic, about a week late on this one. However, this one was voted on by a poll, and both times my subscribers insisted on me covering the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG and its cancellation. However, I thought it'd be very interesting in that instead of kind of putting some regular B-roll, I figured I would take my hand and draw classic Lara Croft as the B-roll for this video. But it seems we kind of got plenty to go into, and it's just going to be more of a retrospective on this whole ordeal with you know, the tabletop RPG, as well as other different projects that we've been hearing from over the past few years regarding Lara Croft and the Tomb Raider franchise. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Smack that like button, make it jiggle. Smack that subscribe button, make it jiggle. Thank you guys for your incredible support. We're trying to get 6K before the end of the year, and I think we're kind of slowly chugging along there. Anyway, the first thing first is the news that came out last week about the cancellation of the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG that was making some forms of headwaves by Evil Hat Productions. Many people saw the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG as another product, another property in which it's more of a bastardization of what Lara Croft is, what fans want. And I think ultimately the fans want is the classic Lara Croft in all of her glory. And now granted, we actually did get that with the remasters and re-releases of the Tomb Raider trilogies, of both Tomb Raider trilogies, by the way. However, those trilogies, even those came with the let's just say, changes for the current standards, because the shepherders of this IP want Tomb Raider to Lara Croft to deviate from its past, basically. And what better example of the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG in which it wasn't even depicted, where Lara Croft wasn't even depicted as a Tomb Raider. She was depicted as basically a truth seeker. And they made that whole spiel about Lara Croft having to distance herself from her past, basically. How it's very, how the past Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider titles were very steeped in colonialist mindset and mentality, when those were fun adventures. You had a very kick-ass and probably one of the OG femme fatales in video games, in fact. And it was fun first. It was an adventurous first. You had a very attractive female character, one of the first to really break through the mold and became an absolute icon. However, I want to read this from I want to read this all the way back from last year when it was announced on Bounty in the Comics. Tomb Raider Shadows of the Truth Tabletop RPG Guidebook confirms Crystal Dynamics working to apologize to franchise's colonialist origins. Is from Spencer. I will definitely put the links in the description. In the instance of Western video game industry's instant obsession with unnecessary virtue signaling, the guidebook for Tomb Raider Shadows of the Truth, the tabletop RPG game, has revealed the current franchise developer Crystal Dynamics is actively working both to apologize and distance from the action-adventure series from its quote-unquote colonialist roots. And that's a very popular topic in the terms of colonialist roots, basically. Developed by Evil Hat Productions, which, if you're not very aware of that company, they did have another tabletop RPG that kind of really raised some eyebrows called Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
You serious?
I'll leave it. I'll just let you guys to decide what that is all about. I think the title speaks for itself there. Tomb Raider Shadows of Truth puts players in a role of truth seekers. Not Tomb Raiders, but truth seekers. Described in the in-game as contemporaries of Lara Croft who strive to reveal long-hidden knowledge and thwart those who would steal and exploit artifacts for their own gains. As a truth seeker, players are tasked with exploring various locales and ruins in service of solving a number of ancient mysteries, the exact details of which determined for each campaign for the Keeper of Truths, especially the game's equivalent of a dungeon master. Of course, obviously in Dungeons & Dragons. Unsurprisingly, in light of both premise, the franchise, and the tabletop RPG itself, Shadows of Truth requires a raid on various ruins to uncover various clues and historical truths that contain therein. To this end, the ostensible attempt to avoid work of being problematic, Evil Hat Productions included a disclaimer within the game's guidebook explaining to players that while the Tomb Raider franchise is based on the idea of an archaeologist explorer, Crystal Dynamics has since moved to distant past classic lore of Croft and her future adventures from the original concept. Basically, it's not raiding tombs, it's not stealing treasure for your own personal gain. It's more of the trend is now returning artifacts to their original origins, basically returning artifacts to where they originally belong, instead of, preserving those artifacts for future generations. See that relooted game, by the way.
Promises made and broken. Is it stealing to take back what was stolen?
Stolen? Who's stealing them?
Us.
Anyway, headlined Radiant Colonialism Disclaimer, as discovered in an early playtest of the game, begins. What is then raiding, and how does it mirror colonial practices? Sounds just like what we saw with the remaster of Tomb Raider 1 through 3, in which there was a disclaimer in that the representations and viewpoints of, the classic trilogy do not reflect what goes on in modern day. So it's basically just looking at classic Tomb Raider through a modern lens, which that's not that's not the case. That should never be the case. Raiding is depicted in the original Tomb Raider games. The story evolves going to an ancient tombs and historical sites of different civilizations and acquiring artifacts, wrote Evil Hat Productions. It operates on the assumption of finders keepers that grants raiders with means to drive and claim ownerships of artifacts regardless of whether they have any historical or cultural claim to the treasure. And whew, this goes into a long, extensive one here. Long, extensive one. But let me continue on this one. Later games released in the franchise have stated the work of addressing by having Lara Croft acknowledge her past mistakes and try to understand and show respect for cultures and communities she comes into contact with. She also has worked to reform raider culture and raise the new awareness of her peers. And if you kind of look at the cover of the, and I'll have the cover on screen. If you look at the cover on the original Tomb Raider, on the tabletop RPG, I would say it is a masterclass of. It is a masterclass of we're going to tick every single checkbox imaginable, to the point where you have a black female amputee with dyed hair. Sorry, a fat black female amputee with dyed hair on the left side of the cover. And then you have Lara Croft, who has been, well, let's be honest here, very neutered in her design from the classic trilogy that the fans came to know and love. Now I get that people love the legend timeline, and there's definitely plenty of love for the rebooted series as well. I'm just saying, from what I'm collecting, a lot of Tomb Raider fans want the classic Lara Croft in all of her glory. This seems to be kind of deviate more and more from that. See what they did with her and her mannish kind of body in Call of Duty. And let's not forget Eidos, or Crystal Dynamics is working on their own Tomb Raider, which, yeah, that's not. Sorry, I can't get with that face. I just can't get with it. It's not Lara Croft to me, in my humble opinion. But anyway, it goes further, and I'll leave a link to the old article from Spencer all the way back in 2024. But there was an update to that in which the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG from Thirsty Sword lesbian developers Evil Hat Productions has been canceled due to creative differences with the license, and I think this came from with Crystal Dynamics and such like that. According to the official announcement by publisher Evil Hat Productions, the project's cancellation is due to creative differences because we couldn't get the original vision to gel with the licensors. However, even though the Tomb Raider tabletop RPG is dead, the mechanics aren't. Evil Hat goes on to note that the project is still going to be reworked in a standalone setting. If you're excited at the idea of a Tomb Raider that lets you beat Lara Croft in her own game, that may come as a relief, even if branding won't be there. Same kind of tomb robbing hijinks will be. Standing on your own 2 feet won't work out so bad for Uncharted did it, but that way you don't have to worry about the faux colonialism, accusations basically, when it was all about fun. It was absolutely just all about fun, basically. Revealed with little fanfare on the publisher's Evil Hat Productions product page, Well Spotted N-World, the announcement praised Tomb Raider's tabletop RPG as stellar development for a team putting their hearts into making an iconic, dynamic RPG of adventure and exploration. Full quote. Sad news, we are canceling the Tomb Raider RPG project due to creative differences. We could not get our vision to gel with the licensor, so we chose to part ways. The solo team designing this game put their hearts into making this an exciting, dynamic RPG of an adventure and exploration. We're proud of the work they've done, and with the plan to retool the project as a standalone game with a fresh original setting. You haven't seen the last of it. Quote. It's good all that hard work isn't going to waste. The industry surrounding the best tabletop RPGs is shaky at the moment for a whole mess of reasons. See what's been going on with Dungeons & Dragons, by the way. Shout out to Coffee Stevie. However, the project Living Beyond is a small ray of hope, and what we've seen certainly held promise, even if its characters were in serious need of a hug. As an example, the comparison class is a serial people pleaser whose self-sacrifice may be all-consuming, with a lean towards self-inflicted martyrdom. Meanwhile, the hunter is very much in danger of losing himself to an abyss of mindless violence. Ouch. Yeah, that goes more to the tabletop stuff. Tabletop, what was going to be in the tabletop RPG. And from what I've been seeing, people have been basically, Tomb Raider fans have been basically celebrating over this, because this is just another derivative deviation from what fans want to see is a classic Lara Croft, basically. Not just that, I wanted to kind of go into, what we others saw with the different properties. Like I said, Crystal Dynamics is still at work with, their own Tomb Raider, which it looks like they want to kind of combine the different timelines together into one, but still, from what I saw from that original artwork, it feels like more of a derivative deviation from, what classic Tomb Raider fans want. We saw the Netflix series, which has gotten very mixed to negative reviews over how they made many changes to the lore of Tomb Raider, especially with how Lara Croft is designed with a more, let's just say, a more mannish kind of point, mannish kind of like approach to it. And well, let's be honest, they basically had to, and basically they made her gay in this one. Actually, they made some of the. Actually, they actually hyped up one of her companions being also in a gay romance as well. This under sweeping. That's another sweeping change people were not really happy with as well. You had the worry of Amazon's live action series with the writer for James Bond's No Time to Die, who was also Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Sorry, Sophie Turner, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who was L337 and Solo, that annoying Jordan Solo, who wrote No Time to Die, the last underwhelming James Bond film, who basically cut Indiana Jones and that absolute disaster, which I call the dialysis of destiny. So yeah, having the Fleabag star and writer helm a Tomb Raider property, to which, and if I remember, I am quoting here. Waller-Bridge addressed the elephant in the room regarding the sexualization of Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider franchise. The quote-unquote boob conversion. We're in it. We're having it, Waller-Bridge said. Apparently, the conversation surrounding Laura's body type in the series has become a hot-button issue in the Tomb Raider's writer's room, according to Waller-Bridge. There are discussions on whether Sophie should be, Lara Croft should be portrayed with an athletic build of her traditional busty appearance. Quote, she's a Tomb Raider, so she's incredibly fit, Waller-Bridge said. She has to squeeze through the tiny rock crevices all the time. It's a different experience squeezing the small rock crevice when you have larger boobs than if you have smaller boobs. An original game developer listed Lara as a 34 double D, or 34D, sorry about that. But journalists and Paramount have estimated her to be a 36 double D with a 41-inch chest. Angelina Jolie was a 36C, but when she played Lara, she padded her bra to make it a 36D, so basically Lara accuracy. 40-inch chest, the average man has a 41-inch chest. Harrison Ford has a 42-inch chest. Dr. Zway Hawass, the famous Egyptologist who squeezes in and out of pyramids all the time in real life, is a rather large, heavy-set man with a much belly bigger than the chest. So why does Phoebe Waller-Bridge want to change Lara again? She can't fit in the tombs. Can Indiana Jones longer explore tombs either? How about real archaeologists or any average-sized men? Just for context, Phoebe's a 34A. Yeah, they were going to make sweeping changes to Lara Croft in the planned Netflix live action series, which was reportedly canceled, but from what this article on Cosmic News is not reportedly canceled. In fact, it seems that they picked their actress with Sophie Turner taking over the helm as Lara Croft, and she might be jacked up for it. However, I very question why would you bring someone like Sophie Turner in, considering that she's been taking a lot more misses than hits lately. I kind of look back at kind of all of these different properties they did with Lara Croft lately, and I feel that the people who are in charge with this, especially with Crystal Dynamics, they really dislike the classic Lara Croft. And you can complain about, the over-sexualization. You can complain about the unrealisticness, the quote-unquote colonialism of raiding tombs and such like that. But however, those aspects were from a different time, and that actually made Lara Croft iconic. She became an icon. She became a household name. The Tomb Raider series became known in legend, because of her, because those were fun action adventure games with action adventure puzzle games with a very attractive female character, one of the pioneers, basically, in my humble opinion, one of the pioneers, and you're not going to live up to that, you're not going to live up to those classic era. I see that, there's definitely some good things when it comes to the rebooted timeline. Although people had some issues with this version of Lara being much more emotional, and whereas classic Lara was much more careless and very much more confident in herself as well. Basically, doing a lot of the Tomb Raider just because she got a kick out of it. I don't think that will us outside of the remaster trilogy, both remaster trilogies. I don't think we will ever see a Tomb Raider property that will focus on bringing back the classic feel of Lara Croft. That classic, it had that edge to it, Classic Tomb Raider, classic Lara Croft had that edge to it, and for what I've been seeing and what we've been seeing with the tabletop RPG, the upcoming IDOS, I keep saying IDOS, but the Crystal Dynamics, what they want to do with their upcoming games, just a lot of these different properties, and Netflix show and such like that, it loses that. It's trying to capture the feel of classic Tomb Raider, but tailoring that classic feel for modern sensibilities. In other words, just completely smoothing those edginess out, when that edginess of classic Tomb Raider is what made it iconic, is what made it recognized for decades. It's what made fans want the classic Lara Croft more than ever. And I think with everything that we've been seeing will either be a derivative that falls short of the classic trilogy or a bastardization, depending on how you kind of look at it. I look at the tabletop RPG as just another thing that was going to be canceled, basically. And I think that we're seeing a change in the industry. We're seeing a change in the world, with the pendulum kind of swinging to the other side. And although that opens up a ton of different problems with the pendulum swinging all the way to the other side, however, we're seeing that, with the different stuff, kind of falling flat. Will that drive fans' desire to want to see classic Lara Croft in all of her glory, in a true to form? I don't think we'll ever see that, especially with the Crystal Dynamics and with the people who are shepherding the Tomb Raider IP. I think they genuinely despise everything that the classic era stands for. And I think in that, everything that they'll create will just be a cheap imitation that will be forgotten. whereas the large-chested, very athletic, the over-sexualized, the adventurous Lara Croft, who didn't give a damn about anything else but herself, will be remembered forever. That's just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you guys a fan of the classic Tomb Raiders? Are you into the rebooted trilogy? Are you into the Legend timelines as well? The Legend anniversary timelines? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also let me know how I did on my first attempt at drawing classic Lara Croft. Anyway, smack that like button, make it jiggle. Smack that subscribe button, make it jiggle. Massive thank you to everybody in the CSF Nation. You guys want to see your name on the screen? Join the channel for as low as $1 a month. Get access to exclusive art drops that I do every 2 months for my channel members. And all of the links will be in the description. And as always, I thank you all for watching. I'm Maki 90 Arts German and Illustrator. And I'll see y'all next time for another video. So until then, stay cute, stay sexy, have fun, take care, much love. Never apologize for wanting attractive women in your media, and especially in your video games. Because without them, we wouldn't have had icons like Lara Croft in the first place. And above all else, never stop drawing.